Good evening, everybody. My name's Adrian. I'm one of the team here at VSGD Careers. Welcome to an evening with two lovely people from Vets Now. A little bit of admin before we get going. If you're watching us live in Facebook, you're about 45 seconds behind us. So if you see me looking to the side, that's just me looking for comments in there. If you're with us in the room, then you're more than welcome to send me notes in the chat. We've got the cameras off and we've got the sound off until we have our chat later on. So we've got time for about half an hour of interview with Anita and Sophie here, and then we'll go into a live Q&A. If you're watching us in Facebook and you'd love to join the chat, you're more than welcome. I'm going to put the link into Facebook imminently, and then we can go from there. So good evening, Anita. Good evening, Sophie. How are you both?
All
Very
good.
well, thank you.
Excellent. I'm going to start with Anita. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Anita.
Oh, crikey. Well, I'm probably one of the older generation vets out there these days. Gosh, I qualified in 97 and eons ago, did an internship in small animal internal medicine, took a year out in general practice, then came back and did a 3-year residency in small animal internal medicine at the Royal Veterinary College, all at the Royal Veterinary College. Successfully completed that, got my certificate at the same time. Then I went back out into general practice, stayed in practice for a good many years, then took a bit of a break for about 6 years to manage my own companies, a couple of companies, but then returned to what is now Vets Now, with my feet sort of running on the floor straight to my first night on shift. So yeah, very exciting, varied lifestyle.
So Anita brings that return to work after a career gap perspective, and we're going to dig into that because there's quite an interesting story behind that. So good evening, Sophie. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello. So I currently am 6 years graduated, so I don't have as an extensive background as you, Anita. So I graduated from the Edinburgh Vet School in 2017, and I went straight into being a government vet. So a senior veterinary inspector is what I started out as, which was interesting. Definitely built up resilience because the farmers don't really like the presence of the government vets on site. And then from there, I went into mixed practice for 3.5 years. That really got me finding my feet, the basics, the bread and butter. And it was a really good, just all-round practice to give us all that. I decided to stay up this way in the Cairngorms. And basically during COVID, the kind of work-life balance kind of all went off kilter, and I was actually looking to potentially leave the profession just because I felt like it was eating up all of my life, and the kind of demands and strains put on us from the kind of COVID kind of era as well. So I then turned to look for alternatives, and Vets Now came up as well. There's a vet in the area that travels back and forward, and I spoke to her about it, and then kind of just went down the route of the recruitment team. I spoke with them and then found out about the AdvantEdge course as well, and thought, actually, do you know what? Maybe AdvantEdgers isn't as scary, because obviously it's a sole charge bit that I was like, I'm not equipped for that. But actually, with the AdvantEdge course and with the support on the ground, I've been absolutely grand, and I'll be 2 years in August at Vets Now.
Excellent. And so you're bringing that perspective of the earlier in career vet who needed the career pivot and wanted to look at other aspects like flexible working and rapidly gaining some ECC skills to complement your good solid base skills, and a species transition as well.
I was doing all sorts, including reindeers as well, but now just small. I do miss the farm a little bit, but not the 3 a.m. call outs in the winter.
Excellent. And the Santa Claus, is it the Elvis system that looks after the emergency landing and veterinary inspection service for Santa Claus when he goes around the world? So I'm going to stick with Sophie. There we go. And you've got the Father Christmas mug. We're nearly at Easter, by the way. That, first third of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm a bit behind.
Oh my goodness. So Sophie, I'm going to stick with you for a second. We're talking about the AdvantEdge program tonight, which is one of the programs that Vets Now run in their Edge series. We're going to talk about Cutting Edge, which is for earlier in career vets, and that's going to be mid to late April. We're going to talk about that. So tell me about the AdvantEdge program. What's this program all about?
Yeah, so it's 75 hours in total of paid CPD, and it's an induction program into out of hours work and ECC. It's created by leaders in the field as well, so it is top quality training and learning. It's a top up course, or a course that you could say kind of just lets you feel like you know what you're doing, in terms of like, because I was 3.5, 4 years out at the time, so actually going to the course just let me feel like, oh, I actually do know this stuff. It's not new, but they kind of home in on the ECC out of our slant on it, because it's slightly different in terms of the way that you work up cases and stuff like that overnight. I'm all about ranting and raving about safely and comfortably through the night is what we want, and the course is really geared up for how we go about that as well. It's clinical and non-clinical, which is really nice, because obviously the transition into nights and just nights along with the weekend days can be difficult. And then off the back of it, you get put into a really nice WhatsApp group with your cohort, and we are still in that group to this day. So I did it last, what was that, 2 Novembers ago? I can't mind, November or 2 Novembers ago. Yeah, 2 Novembers ago. And we still talk, and you can guarantee that there's always someone on that group, so you never feel alone as well. So I've gained a massive amount from it, and the surgical weekend is fantastic. Like, you can't not love that. It's amazing.
Yeah, because it's a hybrid course, isn't it, with 2 weeks and then a residential bit at the end where you go in and meet the group and meet the cohort. But the important thing to say is it's not a course, though. It's an induction course to at least a year's worth of work with vets now, isn't it?
Yeah, so I started off, so you can do it sort of different ways. I'm not sure, Anita, how you did it, but I started on the ground doing some shifts, because I started in August and then went on to the November. So that was quite nice to kind of marry up with what I was seeing in clinic with the course. Some of the new starts that are coming into my team, one of them's doing it the way I've done it. The other one is starting on the 15th of May. So she's going straight into AdvantEdge, and then she'll come out the other end ready to go as well, type thing.
And in terms of the number of people that can go on the course, actually, with Vets Now being a national organisation, there's a number of places on the course. It's not constrained in any way, is it? Because we're looking for people all over the UK.
Yeah, no, there's I can't mind how many people go on the course. I think they keep the cohorts to about 15, 16. Okay. And then they run it, I'm sure they run it twice a year, because there's a November and a May cohort. But I think our numbers were I think they could budge them up as well. I don't think it's set in stone. It just depends on what the kind of intake is for that time frame.
Now, Anita, turning to you for a second, you had a career as a residency, you got your medicine certificate, you were working really hard, and you had this career gap. So firstly, I'm interested to know, what did you do in your career gap? And then secondly, how did Vets Now AdvantEdge help you get back into the veterinary space?
Yes, gosh. So the career gap came along around 2012. So a good 14 years after I qualified. And it just came around because of changes in circumstances. And at the time, I had the opportunity to manage and own a couple of businesses. One was for disability awareness training for a lot of corporate businesses, on-site training, and also another one was to provide sign language lessons, either online or face-to-face. And I don't get me wrong, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I picked up so many skills from those years. But it just got to a point where I didn't feel as valued in that industry compared to being a vet, and I miss being the vet, and I miss that sort of interaction with clients. So again, a few changes in personal circumstances as well led me back to deciding it was time to return to the profession, because I just couldn't resist the pull of it. So at the time, I didn't really know what my plans were. I just know Sophie's cat there.
One of four.
Yeah, you gotta have an animal. You gotta have an animal. It always happens on a Zoom call. So I was nervous, I was anxious, because 6 years away from being a vet and coming back to it is scary. because lots of things change. There's lots of new things, lots of new tests, even just the normal drugs that are out there, even though the active ingredient is the same, but the brand name can change, the packaging can change. So stepping into a consulting room where you start all over again, you start with a probably 18 to 20 appointment day, did intimidate me. So I was kind of messing with the idea of maybe doing a mobile vetting business as well. And I did kind of look into that, and I did kind of spearhead a possibility, an opportunity, but that didn't pan out. And at the time, bills were starting to increase. So I am a bit of a night owl. And it was a friend actually that mentioned out of hours work to me, emergency out of hours work, and says, well, it would suit you because you're always staying up really, really late at night. I thought, okay, that's an idea. So I started looking around on the internet and what jobs are out there for this particular area of vetting. Because when I first qualified, when I was in general practice, it wasn't a big thing, out of hours service providers. We all did our own out of hours. So it's still relatively new to me. But Vets Now kept on coming up when I was doing a bit of a search on the internet. And as I read a lot of information about Vets Now, I noticed that there was actually a vacancy in the town that I was living at the time. And interestingly enough, a fellow student, Amanda Bogue, who was actually in my year at vet school, so we did a residency together, not the same vet school, but we did a residency together at the Royal Veterinary College. Was a good friend then. So I contacted her. I just emailed her and I said, look, you're involved with Vets Now. What do you think about this position for me? And she said, well, with your experience with the internship and the residency, actually you probably fit quite well. It's just that it does involve a lot of emergency surgery, which I was lucky enough to gain during my time in private practice. So I applied for the job. Thankfully, I did get the job in the position and the location that I wanted. But my anxiety was still there. 6 years away from operating on animals and making diagnosis and investigating things. It's still quite scary. And at the time, I did say during the interview that I would be quite worried about this. And even though they were really, really supportive, saying, no, you'll be absolutely fine, you'll be absolutely fine. But that was the time that they mentioned AdvantEdge to me and suggesting that this actually might be a good opportunity for me to do as a bit of a revision and make me feel a lot more confident working in the clinic. So by the time that I joined the AdvantEdge, I had already done around 4 months in a clinic, in the Reading clinic. So I'd already picked up a lot of protocols and how it works and how to use the practice management system. So I was quite lucky already to feel quite settled with the company. But what I gained from that course, what gave me a real step up in my confidence, because I was only relying on the experience that I had from my vetting days before I took that break.
Yeah.
And it was, sometimes I did feel like I was scraping the barrel. Am I doing things correctly here? I'm not 100% sure. Thankfully, even though a lot of the tests and drugs have changed over time, a lot of the emergency procedures like placing a chest drain and doing pericardiocentesis has remained the same. And I was really, really privileged and lucky to do a lot of those procedures at the Royal Veterinary College as an intern and as a resident. So I found that when I did the AdvantEdge course, a lot of the procedures that they were describing, I was quite comfortable with, but there was so much more in-depth ECC information that was given to us in those 2 weeks that just kind of opened my eyes to the world of ECC, from blood gas interpretation, much more in-depth blood gas interpretation, blood transfusions, how to, like Sophie said, how to adapt to nightlife. That was an interesting seminar, for me. Mental well-being. It was just a great variety of material that I wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah.
And when I returned to the clinic, my mindset had changed completely, because I entered the clinic as a medicine resident. So there was a lot of pressure of me to do a thorough workup, diagnosis, get right to the end of diagnosis. And as a medicine resident, that can take sometimes 2 or 3 weeks during one of those cases that you see. But you're taught that that's not the case here. Your job as the vet in ECC is to make sure, one, that animal is stable, make sure that animal is pain-free, it's not suffering. It's not your job to make a diagnosis, but if you can make a diagnosis, then great. But it's not, that's something that you can pass on to the partner practice the following day. And and I think that course taught me a lot about that as well, in that our job is to stabilize. And again, the sort of information that they were teaching during that course really just opened my eyes to it. So then when I came back to the clinic, crikey, my confidence was, definitely 1 or 2 steps up, that
Right.
I felt better, I felt better, and I felt that worked a lot more efficiently as well.
So we've got 2 contrasting stories already, a solid, younger, earlier in career vet and a return to work vet. And that return to work, Anita's gap is a business gap to run those businesses, but in a female profession, that could be for 101 different reasons. So the title of the talk, though, is Edges Become the Boss instead of Interview the Boss. See what we did there? Because you guys have both now worked through, so you've done the AdvantEdge course, got your ECC stripes, so to speak, and then you've started to move into a more senior role within the clinic as well. So Sophie, tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so we are principal vets of the clinic. So we are involved in the kind of the bridge between the clinic and the district level. So above us, we've got a district vet and a district manager as well. So they're there to support us. And on the floor side of things, we've obviously got our team of vets that we help ensure that they've got the mentoring that they need, along with making sure that their work-life balances is right. And we kind of deal with the kind of running of the clinical side of things. It's somewhere between, we spoke about this, it's somewhere between a head vet and a clinical director, but not, it's somewhere in between that, I would say. Like we don't do the budgets and stuff, but we get shown them and we kind of work with them and that kind of thing, rather than actually sitting down and doing the kind of nitty gritty of that. But we have a lot of kind of clinical side of stuff is what we're overseeing mostly, which is really nice to focus on that as well.
And so Anita, in terms of the managing of the clinic, what proportion of your time does that take versus the actual ECC work?
It is down to you to be to manage your time efficiently. You can let it take over your free time, but you do have to be strict with yourself. And there's a lot of stuff that can be filtered. You don't have to tell the clinic everything, because then you don't want to overwhelm the clinic either, because if you do get a lot of information overload, a lot of things can be forgotten. So it's our job to become familiar with what information is passed down to us, and then to filter it to a sort of easy to understand and easy to take in information towards the clinic. And you do have to watch yourself, because a lot of times you can do a lot of reading, and it can take up a lot of that free time away from you. But if you end up being quite disciplined, I probably find that it maybe takes up about 25% of my sort of full-time work, so 75% clinical. I don't know if you find that the same, Sophie. 75% of my time is clinical, and then 25% is the sort of management side of things. Yeah,
I would say the same, because we get you get management hours from home as well, so that you can be working on the kind of more admin-y kind of side of things as well. So it's not all taken up on your night shifts. Obviously, a lot of it you can do bits and bobs of it, but you are allocated time out of work as well for your management from home, which is that's a nice bonus as well to be able to do that.
And I think Aoife Reid, who runs the Edge programs, is responsible for them within Vets Now and other things as well. She was telling me that there's a very high proportion of edgers, either from the Cutting Edge program or AdvantEdge program, who work their way into the more senior roles, into the management structure, and actually into then the teaching, the coaching, the mentoring, and some of the straight management roles as well. So Sophie, I'm interested, as an organization, what's Vets Now like for taking you through that initial heavy duty probationary induction period, the induction period to get you on AdvantEdge? How are you supported as you get further into the role? What's the organization like for that kind of thing?
Yeah, so Well, with being a big company as well, you've got all sorts of tiers of support, which is really nice because you never really feel like you're alone. There's always someone to turn to. At the time when I actually came into Vets Now doing the AdvantEdge course, I was only going to be in the clinic a year, just keep my head just keep my head down and work, because I didn't quite know what I was wanting to do in terms of leave the profession or stay. So the PV that was there originally, she obviously was helping with mentoring and getting my skills up. And then obviously the AdvantEdge course came in, boosted my confidence, really made me feel like I had a good solid grounding of out of hours work, and continued to kind of develop from there. And then the PVs, they're checking in on you initially monthly kind of thing while you're on your probation, and then it kind of teeters off a little bit, but they're always there at the kind of end of the phone if you're needing them. And she then decided, just due to circumstances, that this wasn't for her anymore. She decided to leave, and she was like, you should go for it. Like, it's something that I think you would be fit for and be able to do a good job of it. And at the time, I wasn't looking for a principal vet role, but in the kind of mixed practice side of things, I was potentially looking at the route of clinical director and stuff. So the fact it came back up again, I thought, do you know what, I'm going to go for it. I think without AdvantEdge though, I wouldn't have had that confidence to go, I've got this, it's fine, and then take that next step up. So it was really nice to have that under my belt. Otherwise, I think I'd have still just felt like I was floundering about, trying to kind of grapple with everything that was going on. And then since coming into the role, we've obviously got our district vet and the district team, and they help with the kind of the new stuff, the admin stuff, the kind of filtering of information, the how to manage a team. So they've been really good as well in terms of guidance and where we need to go. And if something arises, again, they're pretty easy to contact. You can just ping them a message, and then work from there.
Great. And so, Anita, you talked about this when we first started. We've been chatting for nearly 25 minutes, by the way. Time's flying. So you talked about being a night owl and being, sort of that transitionary piece to night working. So during the course of the AdvantEdge program, there's the clinical bit, but then there's the transition to that kind of work. So tell us a little bit about that.
So there was a specific seminar on one of the days about what to expect, and a lot of advice and support about how to make that transition. And it's not even just based on mental health well-being and your sleep patterns, but they even focused on nutrition and recommend certain types of foods that they recommend that you eat. They also recommend doing a little bit of maybe a little bit of exercise before your shift starts. I mean, I don't do that. Every minute in the afternoon is important to me. It just really impressed me how much information that they were providing you to kind of adapt to this new way of life. But it was easy for me, and like you said, Adrian, we did chat before, and being a night owl, I'm a terrible binge watcher of television, and you're made to feel guilty if you watch telly into the early hours, because most often than not you have to wake up early for your job the next day and you don't get enough sleep. But it was such a novelty to be watching television at maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's starting to get blue outside and you can start to hear the morning chorus of birds, and not feel guilty about it and think, no, this I need to do this, I need to kind of stay up as late as I can. And then usually about sort of 4:30 or 5 I'd gradually get to bed, and I'd wake up around sort of 2 o'clock in the afternoon and not feel guilty about it. So that was nice, and again the seminar was really, really helpful with regards to sort of improving my nutrition and what's a good thing to eat during the shift, before the shift, in between shifts as well. So yeah, it was really, really interesting. It's
when I teach on the cutting edge program and do some coaching, and it's always fun. We always go out for dinner to that Scottish institution that is Tony Macaroni's. It's interesting to hear people, because if you say to the average person, oh, night work, shift work, that kind of stuff, there's a lot of people would go, oh, that would just screw with my circadian rhythm. But it's interesting now, the science coming out on the different chronotypes and that kind of eveningness tendency that some people have. You still need to get 8 hours of sleep, but to hear that Vets Now is taking it so seriously, because that is their job. I nearly said the day job then, but that is their job, so that they can make sure the staff are fully equipped. But there are natural types that find this work very fulfilling. So Sophie, for you, how do you adjust to your shift patterns? What's an average kind of, because you're not quite full-time hours, but what's the shift pattern that you use?
Yeah, so I do 30 clinical hours a week and then my 5 management hours. I am not a night owl, actually. I am more of a sleepy sloth. If I could sleep all the time, I probably would. So it was quite interesting, the shift. I felt like after the first 6 months, I really hit a wall. I don't know if that was sleep deprivation, going slightly insane. I'm not too sure, but I hit a wall at that point and thought, I need a holiday. So I took 2 weeks off and reassessed and just gave myself some downtime and thought, what are you doing? Because I think as well, when you first start, you feel like you've just, like, you know what it's like. You go into a new job and you're like, I've just got to embrace it all. And then all of a sudden you're like, I've run out of steam. But I got over that. That was absolutely fine. I manage my time a lot better now as well. In terms of, I suppose on the run up to shifts, I try and stay awake a little bit later. So into that kind of 3 a.m. mark before I go to sleep. Then I try and sleep in on the first day of my shift, but that can be quite tricky for us, just because I'm used to getting up. I usually get up at like 1 o'clock in the day and then I'm back asleep by 11 o'clock at night. So I'm a bit of a funny one. But I'm managing the shifts. They work for us. And it's just that case of you've just got to become at ease and at one with, when you finish your set of nights, that is a rest day. I've tried it, do not try and book yourself walks and lunch catch-ups and this, that, and the next thing. It doesn't work. It needs to be a rest day. I mean, maybe for some people it does, but certainly for me, being a bit of a sloth, I certainly find that I need that rest day, and then I can flip back round again. My pattern tends to work. I do Monday, Tuesday nights most weeks, and then I do every second weekend, and I sometimes do blocks of 3. 2 night shifts in a row seems to be the sweet spot. 3 seems to be creeping into the realms of, it's just a bit of a slog. But once you're out the other end of it, because you've got like 7 to 10 days off, it makes it worth it type thing. I tend to, between shifts as well, sleep between 9:30, 10 in the morning all the way through till 6 o'clock at night. And then get up for the last hour, try and do a little bit of yoga, have some food, and then get down onto the floor, because I stay on site as well. So I'm in the clinic all the time when I'm on shifts.
Okay. And Anita, you were saying in the prep that we did that actually one of the big differences you found in managing your time in that way is that compared to what some people would assume is normal hours in a vet clinic from sort of, I don't know, 9 until 7 or something, you actually find you get a lot more free time doing this kind of work. Is that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What's nice about it is that you do have the opportunity that during the normal daytime hours, even if you are working that night, if you wake up for that sort of 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, you've still got 2 or 3 hours before you need to kind of head down towards the clinic. So you can still fit in a lot of things. Now, I know that the younger generation, the more energetic types, can go to the gym. They're out and about, meeting families, catching up with friends. You know, at my age, not so much. I tend to just sort of do things that I need to do. But sometimes having a nice walk before a shift is quite good to clear the air before you get started on a heavy 14.5-hour shift. But it still means that you can fit time, you can fit things to do. But same with Sophie, I do a 1 in 2 weekends as well, but they're not full time, and you can still have the opportunity to enjoy a lot of things over the weekend as well. So I can do a lot more for sure.
It's this is one of the ideas behind the flexible working, is that the vets now, shift patterns are complicated, and even for someone who works with them quite a lot, they sometimes take a little bit to get your head around. But that idea that you can be flexible with your time, you can actually do all these extra things and arrange your sleep patterns. So it's interesting. And if you do have any questions and you want to join us in the room, Sophie and Anita are going to be with us for about 15-20 minutes afterwards. Come and join us in the room. We're going to turn the video cameras on. We're going to let people unmute themselves. If you're with us in Facebook at the moment, I'm going to put the link back into the comments again. Do the quick registration, jump in the room with us, and we can have a chat with the rest of the people that are with us here. So look, we're getting towards the end here, and you know, I always find these chats fascinating because it's a completely different way of working. Let's talk about the remuneration package, and let's talk about what Vets Now is like to work. So I'm giving you a heads up, Anita. I'm going to ask you what are the best things about working for Vets Now, because Sophie's got the salary package details. Sophie, what's the starting salary for the AdvantEdge program?
Yeah, so average coming in is your starting salary would be about the 60,000 mark, but it varies depending on your experience, obviously the hours that you work, the clinic that you work in as well, because some of them have regional allowances and stuff like that. And obviously if you've got an out-of-hours, an ECC cert as well, then that can affect it. But starting salary, you can say 60k, and then it could be upwards of that, depending. And
what kind of other benefits go with that? What kind of, you know, memberships, pension?
Yeah, so we get our Vitality health insurance. There's your, is it 7 weeks holiday that you get? We've got volunteer days as well that I'm always ranting and raving to my team about to use them. So there are days where you can go off and you get paid 2 days volunteering, and that means it can be anything. It doesn't have to be veterinary related. So I think our team are going to try and organise a beach clean or something like that down our way. What else do you get? There's heaps. You get a whole access to, there's a whole wellbeing hub as well. There's the discount section through the Vets Now for You rewards. You also get access to the Pepe app as well, which is really interesting. It's to do with fertility, menopause, men's fertility and stuff like that as well. And then there's more. You can get an Apple Watch through Vitality actually, which is a nice.
That's one of the, you know, make sure you are keeping yourself fit. You know, it's not that it's tracking you; they're giving you discounts on you.
Yeah, and then we've got a whole like health, safety, and wellbeing team as well. So if you're needing anything from them, they're easy to access. There's sick pay as well, company sick pay. So that's 4 weeks in your first 2 years, I think it is, and then it goes up to 8 weeks after that once you've done 2 years with the company. And then there's the enhanced maternity, paternity cover as well that you get. So it's quite a big package. On top of that, there's your CPD allowance as well. It just keeps going.
And you know, you started by saying that, you know, the AdvantEdge program is what, 75 hours of CPD right up front?
Yes, straight off the bat.
Yeah, straight off the bat. So put it this way, it's a significant remuneration package.
It's big, yeah.
And so Anita, what I'm going to start to wrap up with you then. So anything you want to add to Sophie's, and then why would you say to somebody, come work for us here at Vets Now?
Yeah, no, I think Sophie pretty much listed most of them. I think at last count when I read up on it was about 17 perks, some of which you'd expect from a company to provide, but a lot more than what I've seen from, I mean, I've worked for a few veterinary practices before, and the sort of things that Vets Now have provided are incredible. You mentioned, you know, one of my sort of favorite perks, that one is you actually get a day off in lieu for your birthday as well, which is on top of your annual leave. So, and they encourage you to take a shift off near your birthday. The other thing that is something that I felt that was worth mentioning was, you know, no vet likes to get them, but really in the real world, yes, sometimes we will get complaints. And when I was a vet, before I joined Vets Now, we were used to handling the complaints personally. You know, you had to ring the owner, and you had to kind of face up to that. Now I hate making phone calls in the first place, so my anxiety levels and having that sort of confrontation did have a real impact on my mental health. But what's lovely about Vets Now is they have this incredible support system for handling complaints. They have a whole department just for the complaint side of things, and they will get your side of the story, they'll get the client side of the story, and they will build and generate a response on Vets Now on your behalf. So you never actually have to face that part of the stressful side of complaints, which to me was an incredible sort of support system. And, you know, and that really had kind of, I mean, thankfully I don't get, hopefully, not too many complaints, but when my first experience of that happening, which was funny enough my second night when I started with Vets Now, it was just incredible, because I just got this email and it says there's a complaint, but we need your statement. And I thought, gosh, I need to sit down and now chat to this owner. but there was none of that. They said, we just want to hear your side of the story, and we will, we will build that response. And it was incredible. They just dealt with it all. So in that respect, I've never had that before from a company.
No, neither have I.
Yeah, from a veterinary hospital or any practices before. So that to me was a real sort of unique selling point, I suppose, for joining the company. But the other thing as well, when in your clinic, and I'm sure Sophie agrees with me, is that the staff that you work with, you're all of the same mentality doing night shifts. We know we're all a little bit crazy, and you develop, it's like a family, isn't it, Sophie? We become a family. We look out for each other, and there's a massive support system, but not only within your clinic but outside of that as well. And just to add from what Sophie said about when that transition to becoming a manager, certainly in our district, we've got a principal vet WhatsApp group as well. So if there's any sort of things that we didn't understand, or anything admin that we don't understand, we just kind of, rather than approaching our district managers and disturbing them all the time, is that we kind of like post in that WhatsApp group, and everyone will say, oh my gosh, I've had the same problem as well. So it's really comforting, to know that you're not on your own. And yeah, that to me is very different from places that I've worked with before.
Great. It's wonderful to hear the support structure, and working in the middle of the night in a clinic, maybe with a small team, 1-2 vets, maybe with 3 or 4 support staff at the maximum. Even in the hospitals, the team was not huge. It's, those WhatsApp groups actually count for an awful lot, because as you say, Sophie, you inevitably, somebody's awake on the same hour as you are, and in a group of 16, and there's just those little text messages and those going backwards and forwards. But also, I've heard stories of using video to just check in on procedures and, get second opinions and stuff like that, which is a really great, I mean, it's encrypted within the group. So it's one Vets Now employee to another. So, in that sense, it's really nice.
That's
right. We've been nattering for nearly 40 minutes, by the way. So thank you for a wonderful, wonderful chat. If you are in Facebook world and you'd like to come and join us in the Zoom room, I've just put the link in there again. So I'm going to say good evening and good night, and have a great few days to those of us in Facebook. And I'm going to stop the stream in a second now. So wave bye-bye to Facebook.
Bye, Facebook.
And for the purpose of the recording, thank you for watching back. Wave bye-bye to the recording. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.